This Week in 40K.
Welcome to This Week in 40K for December 5th, 2023. I'm not Colin. Nowhere here is a not Billy, because I am Billy, and there is no Colin. We are currently working through our holiday scheduling situations. Colin is working on a new job, and very understandably putting that first. Also, 40K is in sort of a weird place of, we have a healthy meta. We have new things coming in, but it's the holidays, and while there were a lot of events this past weekend, previous weekend was Thanksgiving in the United States. Then we've got, the holidays coming up in the end of December. So we'll see what ends up making the most sense to do during December. If there are weekends that make a ton of sense for us to come and talk to you and tell you what's happening, we will do that. If it makes sense for everyone, including you, dear listeners and viewers, to spend time with your families, we will allow for that to happen as well. In terms of life, as the one of you fictitiously famous can see, I'm still in Tucson. This is an actual background. My parents' library. All good houses should have libraries. I'm firmly of that opinion. As a result of which, I have not played 40K in 2 weeks. 40K miniatures just didn't make the cut to drive 16 hours to come to Arizona. Also, as of when I left, there were no events scheduled within 50 miles of Tucson for the month of December. And so painting just wasn't going to be what I was going to do. Because I know there's at least one of you out there who cares passionately, as I do, about both football, fantasy, and real. The 49ers crushed this Philadelphia Eagles. That was delightful. My fantasy team did lose its second game, but I've already locked up first place in our league. Colin is locked up second place, and so there is potentially an interesting showdown coming down the pike. That's really all the news that's fit to print about personal life. I have actually a fairly, light news, heavy events coverage this week. There is just me. Everyone in the chat, please feel free to chime in. I will be engaging with you heavily, and it might be a little bit shorter of a show just because, there's only so much banter you can do individually. There's a certain magic that comes with having a co-host who enjoys talking as much as you do about this. Colin and I have often said, there's not a lot to talk about. We'll probably have a 30-minute show, and then we're yammering well past an hour. Who knows? Maybe I'll yammer at you well past an hour, but I don't believe that to be the case today. As I said, enjoy your families, enjoy your real lives outside in the world. There's this concept called touching grass, which I avoid to the best of my personal abilities and would be upset if my favorite shows slowed down, but sadly, real life gets in the way. So without further ado, let's find out what's new.
What's new?
Well, since last we spoke, there was big new. Necrons and AdMech both got previewed. I believe they should be in the wild. This coming weekend is when the actual release of all the books are out. But all the rules are out. No events had them yet, understandably. The books have yet to be released. But I'm sure everyone's brain is spinning and cogitating about their favorite, depending on your perspective, I guess, good guy type of robots. If you come to this show for trenchant and detailed analysis of the newest codices, I'm going to point you to other places that are going to do it better. Specifically on this network, the OG boys are just far better players than I am and ever will be, quite frankly, at this point in my life, because I'm almost twice their age and real life has caught up with me. But go listen to the OG for takes on that. Quite frankly, best overall, Noah is a better player than I am and talks to better players. I myself enjoyed some of Art of War's delightful content about it. And personally, I think Goonhammer does a great job of posting reviews because I am a visual learner and I need to read actual things rather than have people talk to me. There's a lot of information out there. The general takes that I have seen is that there is at least one strong Necron detachment. It has a bit of jank. It's not the monolith one. It seems to be one that's kind of all-comersy and has jank in it. AdMech, no one seems to really know what it is that makes the most sense. There's apparently some talk of 18 chickens as a good new army, taking the place of 18 breachers, which we will discuss later. Personally, I'm a big fan of the fact that the melee chickens anyway, can move 10 and advance and charge. And then I looked at their unit size and saw that they maxed out at 3, and means that they only have 12 attacks. And sure, they have sustained hits too, but I don't know. Fast-moving semi-dreadnoughts, toughness 7, good saves, because I can't remember if it's 3-ups or 2-ups, but they do have a 5-up. So they're reasonably resilient. I'm just not sure they're going to punch their way through a paper bag. The las cannons, while they went to twin linked now means rerolls as opposed to double the shot volume, and they had so many ways to make those 2-shot las cannons efficient back in 9th. I don't know. Richard Siegler is saying it's good. You listen to Richard Siegler before you listen to anything that I say about 40K. But we shall see what happens with both of those books. The main thing that seems to have come out of both of them is that there are a variety of potential builds, and none of it seems, oh my God, what the heck are you doing, Games Workshop broken? Which, given how some of the later releases in 9th happened, and how not that we've experienced thus far in 10th with NID, Space Marines, and now these 2 books, that's a really good sign. The power level, there are some outliers that need to be sanded down as we get going. You're going to hear some triple Night Spinner, Incarn, Eldari lists. You're going to hear a lot of Dark Communes and Chosen and Chaos Space Marines. And apparently Black Templars, while not necessarily winning events, are posting very good win rates. So for those places that emphasize that, they will be sounding the alarm bells potentially on that. I'm sad because that means I'm going to go 2 months without getting to play the Black Templar list that I have in my head, and then they're going to get nerfed. That's fine. You need to sand down those 2 little bits, but once that happens, the meta's in a freaking great place. And so if we just add more interesting variety as opposed to more interesting variety in the middle, as opposed to just power outliers at the top and bottom, that's going to lead to a much more interesting gameplay, because you're going to have to figure out new questions that you need to have answers for at the table. And as long as those questions can have answers, you would, but they're not outliers on power level, you would actually see this general homogenization of, I need to have very broad-based answers to very broad-based questions. And that actually would do a pretty good job of, again, bringing everyone towards the middle, because if you have to have a broader base of answers, you can't target things. And that targeting of answers is often assuming an even distribution of power level, what leads to relative spikes, because some armies are better at answering very specific questions. And if those are the most relevant questions, then those armies rise to the top. I don't think that that's necessarily what's happening with Eldar right now, but you could make it a case that Chaos Space Marines with the Dark Commune and Chosen spam, sort of the Manny list from the World Championship, is very good at answering the Eldar question right now. And so while, yes, the math on that Chaos stuff definitely pushes it towards the top, it's the fact that it has a good answer to that question that I think means that it rises up a bit compared to the rest. Now, its math is what, just allows it to turbo punch some of the other things in the middle. But that's an example of what I'm talking about there. So somehow I ended up from talking about Necrons and AdMech to explaining my theory on why Chaos Space Marines is good right now. Who knows? That's the way my brain works. But that's it for new rules. In terms of new 40K stuff in the last 2 weeks, it is limited. Yesterday, there was a new squat champion with a mining laser miniature that was posted. There were no rules. As far as I could tell, there was no release date. It seems to just be sort of one of those cool holiday miniatures that Games Workshop does, because they're or Phenomenal Miniatures Company, and it'll be available sometime, somewhen, for some use. I have on my outline here anything this morning that was posted on the community page, and no, there's a Horus Heresy Fac and Errata for the Age of Darkness publications, and something new about the Red Gobbo. Not a lot there for 40K-ness. So yeah, buy your holiday boxes, put your holiday lists together. For those of you who are new to the hobby and have never had to put together a holiday list for your friends and family who love you, who will get you something, specificity is important. I would link to the specific SKU, the specific box that you want, and list out the specific quantity and make it clear that it's of boxes, because otherwise you end up with what happened very long ago to about 13-year-old Billy, who asked for 2 Tyranid warriors. Now, I meant 2 Tyranid warrior boxes because I wanted 6. At the time, Tyranid warriors came in boxes of 3. My mother, wonderful woman that she is, bought me a single box and thought she was going 50% above and beyond, giving me 3 Tyranid warriors when I only wanted 2. I explained to her with as much love in my eyes as a disappointed, largely spoiled teenager could muster that I meant 2 boxes. It's fine. I think I still have those, old plastic 1990s Tyranid warriors somewhere in a closet here in my parents' house. But yeah, specificity. People who don't play this game do not know what you mean. So don't just say, I want Space Marines. Because if you do, you will end up with Hammerfall turrets and Thunderstrike guys on guns. Fictitiously Famous says he's a Destroyer cult player. What do we feel about under half as a rule, and should it change? Yeah, I think that we're seeing the problem with under half and the unit sizes that GW has, that under half a lot of times means 2 models left or 1 model left, or you can't have under half strength. And they very clearly want units, they want to be able to use under half strength as a rule. I think we're seeing evidence that and at least from my gameplay experience, vast and expansive though it may be, under starting strength feels relatively similar to under half strength for just about everything other than morale. I think morale staying at under half strength probably makes more sense because you don't want to be taking that many morale checks to be battle shocked. But for all of the rules that key on, you get +1 to hit, +1 to wound, plus this, that, or the other thing, for your unit being under X, like for example, how sisters are below half strength or below starting strength, or Destroyer Cult triggering of we get really better at killing things that are below half. I think below starting personally is a much better way for that rule to be relevant than under half strength. Your mileage may vary. I guess you could make the under half strength buffs be very strong, but the way the power level has been assigned to that particular rule, it feels like GW thinks it's a lot easier to get something to under half strength than I think most of us experience it. There's my comment there. Again, anyone in the chat, this is the day to get your questions answered, because otherwise it's just me about to be reading off a lot of results. And while I think I have some interesting things to say about it, it's better to go back and forth. That said, let's move on to what's winning.
What's winning?
What's winning is these pre-roll sounds that allow me to take sips of coffee. All right. So we got events. We have, I believe, 6 events, and there are some big ones that happened. I guess everyone got home, got rested from the World Champs, and this is an addictive hobby. They have fixes that need to be fixed, and so we start with and now for my friends across the pond, I believe I'm going to say this correctly, but if I don't, my apologies. The Leicester Super Major in Leicester, England. Leicester. I know you speak with a accent that we find intelligent and sophisticated on this side of the pond, but can we please have an actual set of consonants and vowels that make sense per the language that you, England, created. Leicester Super Major in Leicester, England, 187 players, only 5 rounds, but the top 4 did do a playoff, which allowed them to crown an ultimate champion. And that champion was Will Whitaker with Chaos Space Marines. What did Will bring? Will brought a pretty standard list. 3 lords, each of whom have 5 chosen that they chill with. They sit in 2 rhinos. 3 dark communes with their 16 accursed cultist friends each, 2 forge fiends, 2 rhinos I mentioned, Celeste, and 2 threes of nurglings. This list found the broken math and shoves it in your face. It comes at you fast. Have an answer for being bum rushed by 50, 60 Chaos Space Marines on turn 1 or turn 2, depending on deployments and who goes first. And those Forge Fiends, dear God, they just love anything that they can blast into. Celeste is an undercosted beatstick, and Nurglings occupy space on the table phenomenally well, even at OC0. This is a list largely. I'm going to call the triple Accursed Cultist triple chosen, the Manny style from World Championships. This list won a World Championship. It then went 7-0 at a Super Major. Games Workshop has said that we can expect the next data slate sometime in January. I would personally expect chosen and accursed cultists to get some attention in that. We'll see. Second place, Nassim Fouchain, bringing World Eaters. I gotta say, for as much as 10th edition gets the rap as you cannot do melee, Chaos can punch you hard in the face. That Chaos Space Marines list I just read, 2 Forge Fiends shoot super hard. No question about it. A 10-3-3 profile on guns is just good into pretty much everything, especially with the rerolls that it can get. But the Accursed Cultists and the Chosen, they will delete what they touch in melee, and that's what that list is designed to do. And as is anything with World Leaders, it is impossible to make a World Leaders list that doesn't want to punch you in the face. If you're trying to, please try something else, or embrace the fact that you're going to enjoy the what sort of nails are in the head of World Leaders. There's some sort of nails that are in the head of World Leaders. That's what the experience would be of trying to play World Leaders if you're not punching someone in the face. Nassim is punching people in the face. Angron, Karn, Lord Invocatus, Lord on Pig, Master of Executions, 10 Jackals, 15 Zerkers, 10 and 5, 2 Rhinos, 3 8-pound, 6 and 3 Exalted 8-pound. You're going to hear that list point for point a little bit later on. That seems to be what you do if you want to do World Leaders. I would say that is an incredibly high skill expression army, because if you understand how to use positioning, how to maximize all of those tools, they absolutely can run through pretty much anything. There are a lot of fail cases for that if you're not able to maximize what it is that you're doing with it. Butcher's Nails, thank you, Fictitiously Famous. The Butcher's Nails is what happens when you try to do a non-melee World Eaters army. So speaking of Butcher's Nails, let's read another Eldar army. But yes, I'll be here all week. Tip your waitresses and waiters. Daniel Whitaker brought Eldari. Little bit different Eldari list though, and if you wait till I believe 2 events down, we have a real spicy Eldar take. Daniel Whitaker's Eldari though, Wayleaper, Fugan, Spirits here with only 5 Wraith Guards, starting to see some variation on that. I would guess due to boredom, but Spirits here and 5 Wraith Guard. Incarn, 2 5s of Dark Reapers. The Tempest Launcher is good indirect, and eventually those guys get to walk out and shoot their guns too. 5 Fire Dragons, which again we are seeing more Fire Dragons. 3 Night Spinners, because that's just correct. 5 and 5 Rangers and Hawks, and 10 Spiders. You still see a solid core of shooting. You see the indirect. You see characters who are really annoying and punch above their weight. This army can be anywhere it wants on the board. There's a reason Eldar have been good for a very long time. I'm very curious to see, Night Spinners pointed above 200 points apiece and still being fielded in 3s. Just take off the twin linked on their gun. Moving on. Crichton Centaurus. I believe it's actually Kristen. I'm going to pull that up because I think I dropped an S and I do not want to rob this fourth place player of the correct pronunciation of their name. And I have time. Come on, BC. No, it is just Crichton Centaurus. Okay, Crichton. Brought sisters, Canonus, Dialogus, Palatine, and a Triumph. Anytime a Triumph shows up, it's a good time. Interestingly, no Morven, no Celestine. 20 sisters, 1 immolator, 2 rhinos, 30 arcoflagellants, because that's really one of the main poles of that army. Single Cassie, the Castigator, 2 twos of Crusaders, 2 Death Cult Assassins, 3 Exorcists, 5 Seraphim, and a Calidus. Exorcists have great math. They shoot you well from out of line of sight. There's a bunch of little pieces that can run around and do the mission, and there's enough stuff to clog up the middle that this army is something that you need to take seriously. So that's it for the list that we'll read, just in terms of results of what came afterwards. You had World Eaters, Sisters, CSM, Orcs, and Demons. There were 31 players who only had 1 loss at this event. That's a lot of 4-1s. Next up, we have Merry Slaneshmas 2023 in Ocean Shores, Washington. 96 players, 6 rounds. This is one I wish Colin were here for, because we get to talk about so many people that we talk about all the time from the Pacific Northwest. Starting off with, I would actually say, not who my pick would have been, but certainly a name that we mention a lot, Timothy Grant with Death Guard. This Death Guard list is fun and interesting. I am curious which FAQ Merry Slaneshmas used, because Morty is in this list, and if Morty's Ignore Everything works, it's a much better list. If Morty's Ignore Everything doesn't work on the weapon profiles specifically, it's not quite as good. It's still very good. Let's go into it. So you got Morty. You got 3 Biologist Putrefiers, Tallyman, Typhus. You have 50 Plague Marines, 4 units of 10, 2 units of 5. Those hang out in 5 rhinos. There are 20 Poxwalkers. There are 3 threes of Nerdlings. This is a much faster Death Guard army than you would think because of the rhinos. It is resilient because transports just require an activation to kill. And even if they're a rhino, which is a killable transport, if it dumps out 10 Plague Marines, those also take a while to chew through. So you actually, a huge chunk of its resilience is just the amount of activations that you have to have in order to chew through all of the things. And that's not something that we talk about enough, I think, as a community, is just like the activation economy. Good friend of the channel, former member of the channel, his life is just, preventing him from creating best in tabletop content at the moment, Michael Tempe. His game, Outer Realms, if you ever get a chance to play it, you absolutely should. Everyone who's ever played it has loved it. But what it taught me, because it is the concept of an activation economy, how many times you can make a unit do a thing as a real resource to think about and husband. And this Death Guard list is going to tax that, and then punch you real hard in the face if you get within 12 to 18 inches of it. So congrats to Timothy, 6-0. Also 6-0, Hank Adams, former member of Hank's List Corner. Hank brought Ultramarines Vanguard, basically Hank's take on similar list to what John Lennon brought to Worlds. Really quickly, Fictitiously Famous thinks that he accidentally abused this by doing 60 Khorne Berserkers in 6 rhinos. Again, just having all of those units and all of those rhinos, and then the units get out, but you still have the rhinos to be places and do things. If you've never tried it and you have the ability to even just proxy it up, even with like a cardboard box that you got for the holidays, try it and you'll learn some things about how the game works. This is mid-table messaging coming to you live from Billy Highland. Hank's Vanguard, Space Marines, Ultramarines in a Vanguard. Apothecary Biologist with 6 aggressors, this one with the blade driven deep so that it can infiltrate. Phobos Librarian with 5 infiltrators, just to be a really annoying mission playing piece. Lieutenant with Combi Bolter, that's the lone op guy. Marnius also goes with the aggressors, turning them into a very large but very all-purpose unit. Advance, charge, shoot, fall back, all of those things. and also punch pretty well because Marnius and his friends punch well. And then Uriel Ventress, who can tell the 6 dev cents to have real deep strike, which lets them do the Vanguard boop around the table in all sorts of interesting ways. 5 assault intercessors, I assume to be Uriel's bodyguard in this list. And then what Hank did is take a concept from John's list and really push it to 11. Hank had 18 inceptors, 12 plasma, 6 bolter. Again, with the ability to pick up any unit in the army, put it back in deep strike, these inceptors have to be respected as coming in 3 inches away from you the entire game. They will hurt. That is a thing that allows phenomenal mission play, phenomenal killing, and I actually really think it's an intelligent evolution of the list by Hank, especially if John's list had enough chaff to really slow down the game, pace it out, and leverage the fact that John is, a top 5 player in the world. Hank is an excellent player. I don't know that he necessarily punches at that weight class. Hank would probably in his more honest moments admit that. And so having just a little bit more killy power, I think is a really intelligent pivot for Hank, and would recommend to most people trying to pick up the list. Followed up 2 5s of scouts. Scouts are phenomenal. GW, please release the actual minis so that we can use them. 3rd place, Steve Trimble, cast Space Marines. This is basically the exact same thing that we just talked about, with a little bit of difference. All right, so 3 Lords to hang out with 15 Chosen, 3 Dark Communes to hang out with 48 Accursed Cultists, 3 Rhinos, and that's because Steve also brought 3 5s of Legionaries. Extra bodies to fit in those Rhinos, do the things that I was talking about above with the Death Guard list. Steve actually, earlier in 10th, had essentially that Death Guard list. And so this just seems, to my mind, actually like a slightly better version of it, because I think the data sheets are just better, quite frankly. There's also 1 Forge Fiend and 3 Nurglings, just for mission play. But same concept, taxing your opponent's activations. There are 9 different really efficient units in that army, along with the transports. Is a good list. Steve is an excellent pilot, and certainly in that field, went 5-1. Congrats, Steve. And then finally, of lists we will talk about, Joel Rogers brought Space Wolves and a Stormlance, because Thunderwolf Cavalry that can move 20 inches is just fun. 20 inches in charge is just fun. Terminator Librarian with 5 Wolfguard Terminators and a Land Raider Redeemer. Fun. I'm not sure how good it is, but fun. Logan on Slay. 2 Lieutenants on Wolves, 1 Lord on Wolf. Those characters go each into their 6 Thunderwolf units for 8 Thunderwolf units that do hit hard enough and can get anywhere they want on the board, even though their bases are gigantic. 2 3s of Inceptors, 5 Scouts, 2 Vindicators, 190 points, but they have a good gun, and they are tougher than you would think. So that is Joel's list. Good job, Joel. Just in terms of factions, you got Chaos Space Marines in 5th, Chaos Knights in 6th. I believe that was Lucas. Another Stormland Space Wolves in 7th, and in 8th you have 1,000 Suns. So if you're going to the Pacific Northwest, be ready for some Space Vikings. Slightly more coffee, and we will continue. Alrighty, Warzone Atlanta. Warzone Atlanta 2023 40K major tournament in Atlanta, Georgia, which is where they keep Atlanta. 95 players, 7 rounds. Okay. And if anyone in the chat knows for a fact whether or not Warzone had some sort of interesting bespokeness in its missions or rules, let me know, because some of these lists are not what you're going to expect. Now, factions-wise, we have Z Martin winning the whole thing, and Z's first name is just the letter Z, with Eldari, 7-0. Okay, no surprises there. Well, let's talk about Z's list. It's a Wayleaper, it's a Skyrunner, it's a Fugan. Well, that's relatively normal. Then it's a Karandras and a Solitaire. This is not normal. There's also no Avatar, no Incarn. There are then 10 Storm Guardians. I type out all the lists that I talk about. I bet you I could, let's just actually do this. Storm, we're doing this live. Storm, oh, wow, my fingers were in the wrong place, and that does not spell Storm Guardians. We're going to look and see if Storm Guardians have ever appeared anywhere else in 10th edition if my computer would wake up. All right. There are Storm Lances. No, this is the one time and this document goes back to when we started doing this show. First time Storm Guardians have shown up in any list. 10 of them. 3 Falcons holding 15 Fire Dragons. So that is, I assume, where you're putting your Fugan, your Karandras. I don't think the Solitaire has the right keywords to go into those. Those are, the math on those is efficient. They are like 300-point Falcon plus units. 2 5s of Rangers, 2 5s of Scorpions, 3 D Cannons. D Cannons are still good, and 5 Hawks. When people talk about the fact that Eldar probably need to catch another nerf, it's the fact that this list is 1,500 points different than the lists that are doing well at other events, and it still won the event. Eldar is great. Everyone should bring the hardest, nastiest, meanest army they can to a tournament. That's the point. There were some design mistakes in the Eldar Codex. Next up, we have 2 different guard lists. And these are sort of interesting and fun guard lists. David Purcell came in 2nd place, 6-1. Lord Solar, Platoon Command Squad, 3 Demolisher Tank Commanders, 30 Catechins, 6 Bulgrins, a single Basilisk, a single Leman Russ Executioner, 1 Manticore, 3 Solo Scout Sentinels, 2 Chimeras, and a Calidus Assassin. You don't generally see that many tank commanders. I'm just interested in that list by David. I think it's cool. Next, slightly more standard guard list from Chris Daly. Gaunts Ghosts, Lord Solar, Platoon Command Squad, Solo Tank Commander, 20 Catechins, 10 Infantry. They got 2 Chimeras to play around in, 6 Bulgrin. So both of these players want a little bit of that mid-table bully. Leman Russ Demolisher, Leman Russ Eradicator, 2 Dorns, 2 Solo Scout Sentinels. So Chris picking a little bit more of a parking lot vibe than David, but honestly not by that much. Just good efficient shooting. Fun tanks are fun. And then we have Daniel Hester's with a little bit more of a traditional Eldar list, although, again, some spice in there too. Wayleaper, Fugan, Illic, who has 5 Rangers to hang out with, a Solitaire and an Incarn, a single Falcon with 5 Fire Dragons. Again, seeing that Falcon Fire Dragon combo show up. 3 Night Spinners, because of course, and then 3 Void Weavers. Again, Void Weavers are still like incredibly efficient shooting, move fast. They are nowhere near as durable as they were back in the light days when, that Adepticon that had 18 Void Weavers that were pink in a mirror match. One of the funnier pictures out there. But yeah, so still doing fun things with Eldar. Tau, 2 Gladius, Space Marines, 1 regular, 1 Black Templar, Votan and CSM rounding it out. More coffee. All right, that's it for that cup of coffee. More coffee to come later this morning. Warhound GT in December at Game Grid in Lehi, Utah. 60 players, 5 rounds. Won by a faction we do not talk about here in 10th edition. Chase Chapel took Grey Knights and went 5-0. Chase's list, 2 Librarians, Crow Drago, 5 Terminators, 5 Strikes, a Land Raider Redeemer, 5 Interceptors, 5 Paladins, 10 Purifiers, 1 Calidus, and I believe Chase is the one who had the, quote, Suckit Ganyo Storm Raven. Andrew Gagnon is a wonderful player. I assume they know each other. We're having some delightful trash talk, and Chase just, wanted to bring a Storm Raven. It does have. Oh no, he isn't. Someone else brought the Suckit Ganyo Storm Raven gunship. I'll get to that later. Apparently, it has the right keyword, so it benefits from all the Grey Knight stuff. It is a powerful data sheet. I personally think it's probably held back from there being slightly more efficient options. But hey, if you got smoke them if you got them, except don't, because smoking is bad, kids. Second place, Jason McKenzie with Tau, Cadre Fireblade, Farsight, Cold Star, 10 Breachers in their Devilfish, 3 and 6 of Crisis Suits with a combination of Cyclic and Fusion, Ghost Keel, 10 Kroot, 2 4s of Kroot Hounds, a single Krootox Rider, because Jason needed to be special, 3 Piranhas, 2 Sky Rays, you don't see Sky Rays a ton, 3 Stealth Suits, and 6 Tetras in units of 2. Tau going to shoot efficiently. A good amount of mission play in there. It's just a good list. It doesn't want to get punched in the face, but it has tricks to prevent that from happening. Speaking of punching you in the face, Rich Kilton, third place with Orcs, 4-1. Rich brought Badrock, Mazrog, a Knob on a Pig, a Pain Boss, and a War Boss. 10 Beast Boys, 20 Boys, 3 Trucks for all those boys, 5 Burners, 10 Flash Gits, 20 Gretchen, 10 Knobs, 6 Pigs, 5 Storm Boys, and 2 threes of Bikers. General widespread of Orcs with a variety of speed profiles, basically all of it pretty much just wanting to punch you in the face other than the Flash Gits, which can do some good shooting. It will play the mission incredibly well because it will be everywhere on the board, and it does take a while to chew through that many green bodies. And Rich is a phenomenal player. So congrats to Rich on third place there. And then, you know how I said that we were going to talk about a point-for-point World Leaders Army later? Well, here it is. Antonius Tolman brought the exact same World Leaders Army that Nassim brought from earlier in the episode. Angron Karn, Lord Inlicatus, Lord on Pig, Master of Execution, 10 Jackals, 15 Berserkers, 2 Rhinos, 3 8-bound, 6 and 3 Exalted 8s. There is not a lot of flex in what you can do with World Leaders. If this is an army you want to play, grab this list, get your reps in. It will do you well. Votan Death Guard, Space Marine Vanguard, and Chaos Demons round out the rest of the Warhound GT. We got 2 more events. Let's go through them. I will take as many delightful digressions as I choose. Feliz Exterminatus in St. Robert, Missouri, 59 players, 5 rounds, won by Ryan Verbeck with Invasion Tyranids. Broodlord Deathleaper, Neurotyrant, Old One-Eye with his 2 Carnifex friends, 20 Gargoyles, 2 units 10, a Biovore, 3 Exocrines, because they are just the right sort of efficient shooting to fill out the middle of a list, 10 Gene Stealers to hang out with that Broodlord, some early pressure there, 2 Lictors, 3 Neurolictors, because Lictors got new miniatures and massive glow-ups in terms of what they can do for your army, 1 Maliceptor, and 2 solo Pyrophores. Much more of a mid-sized bug list here, but certainly, you know, with the Gargoyles and the Gene Stealers and all of the Lictors, more than enough ability to be all over the place. Lots of funky, fun stuff that list can do, and Ryan piloted it to a perfect 5-0. Second place, we have Black Templars in a Gladius Task Force by Kyle McCord. If anyone in the chat can fact check me on this, I'm pretty sure Kyle was at the World Championships. I'm pretty sure Kyle brought a relatively similar list to this. Fictitiously, feel free to chime in about anything you want to say about Feliz Exterminatus. Kyle's Black Templars. It is a Gladius. Gladius means that you have the good aggressor brick with the Apothecary Biologist and 6 aggressors. They hang out in a Land Raider Redeemer. Fictitiously is confirming that Kyle did for the World Championships. I personally am a fan of the actual Black Templar detachment. I seem to be wrong because all the best players aren't taking it. And this is one of those reasons that aggressor brick, it also probably picks up one of the 2 captains, so that the captains are probably actually hanging out with the Sword Bros. There are 3 5s of that. They get Hellbreak as well. Those things blend through anything. 2 of those units fit in the second Land Raider Redeemer. Yes, that's right. 2 Land Raider Redeemers, and another one goes in the single Impulsor. They will run out, punch things, and it will hurt. Solo Lieutenant with Combi Bolter, 2 3s of Inceptors, and 5 Scouts. So again, you're seeing transports holding nasty melee threats being a very viable thing to do. We've seen it in Death Guard, we've seen it in World Eaters, we've seen it in Chaos Space Marines, and now we're seeing how your Loyalist Marines are going to do it. It's going to be something that looks like this. Now, for those of you out there who want to go deeper and do something probably worse, but certainly less adopted, check out what the regular Crusader points cost is in Black Templars. It's 13. And they are full tactical Marines, and they fit in Rhinos. Just saying. My current preferred list has 3 Rhinos with 30 of those guys and some Land Raiders and some Impulsors and some Sword Bros. Anyway, I think it's fun. And I only think it because, again, I'm with family and not getting to play it. Peyton Priest, 3rd place, Eldari. Peyton brought Eldari, but he brought Inari, not regular Eldari, because Peyton loves themselves some Dark Eldar, and this is how you do it. You Do not bring them as regular Dark Eldar. You bring them as Inari. Death Jester in Carnivrain. Okay. 3 Night Spinners, because that's correct. Single Viper, 5 Warp Spiders, 2 5s of Mandrakes, doing their best Swooping Hawk, Warp Spider, Shadow Spectre impersonation, 2 Ravagers, and 15 Scourges. It's the 15 Scourges that I think are the way you justify doing Dark Eldar, because they bring a slightly different profile than what you can get from your Craft World friends, and really just this army is not going to be interacted with unless it wants to be. So good job by Peyton, 3rd place. Let me see if this is no. I think right. Sorry, it's the next event that had someone making fun of Andrew Gagnon with their funny army list, but not Kyle Lamperez in 4th place with an Iron Storm of Dark Angels. Dark Angels because of Azrael. That's the only reason it's Dark Angels. Azrael, 2 Tech Marines, because that's what you bring in an Iron Storm, 10 Assault Intercessors, 5 regular Intercessors, 2 Ballistuses, 2 Gladiator Lancers, 2 3 of Inceptors, a Landerator Redeemer, 2 Redemptors. Iron Storm just ups that quality over quantity data sheets, that extra little bit that they need. You're going to have advance and shoot auras off of the Tech Marines. It's just a good list if you want to shoot people with guns, with Space Marines, and big robot-y Space Marines. This is the way to do it. Space Wolf and Stormland in 5th place for 1. World Eaters, Chaos Knights, Necrons, Tau, and an Iron Storm. Space Wolves in 10th. That one, I actually, as I go through the rest of it, I want to bring that up because I want to count how many Dreadnoughts they fit in there, because Space Wolves can fit a lot of fun Dreadnoughts into an army. Finally, we have the, is BCP? BCP is going to go along. Okay, Lucas Schubert brought, this is saying it's Iron Hands, not Space Wolves. Let's see. Oh, okay, yeah, no. My information was incorrect. This is not a 17 Dreadnought dance party. It's just a regular army. All right. Iron Cage GT Winter Whammy in Bedford, Texas. 54 players, 5 rounds. As I go through this, I'm very curious as to what terrain this Texas tournament played with. Kit Smith Hanna brought Dark Angels in Iron Storm. This one's actually Dark Angels. Azrael, but a Talon Master. 2 Tech Marines, which is, as you said, what you do. 3 Inceptors, 5 Scouts, a Ballistus, a Dark Shroud, a Landspeeder Vengeance, 3 Redemptors, a Thunderstrike, and this is the Suck It Ganyo Stormraven. You can sell me on a Stormraven in an Iron Storm a lot more easily than you can sell it to me in Grey Knights, largely because I actually just think the Iron Storm is better, but Eat It Ganyo Stormraven gunship. It's got 2 Hurricane Bolters, it's got 2 Storm Strike missiles, twin heavy plasma cannon, and a twin multi-melta. It's a lot of guns on a hull, and if you can keep it in the air long enough to shoot a few times, that's what the Dark Shroud is there for, what the Tech Marines are there for. It'll win you some games. Also, again, I think Texas uses different terrain, and if I thought I was going to be getting a lot of shooting angles on things, this is a list that I would be interested in. Speaking of a list I'd be interested in if I could shoot people a lot. Brad Townsend with Admech 5-0. 3 Manipulus leading 18 Breachers. 2 10s of Vanguard and a Dune Rider. 2 Autocannon Chickens. 3 3s of Dogs. 3 2s of Dragoons. Before the Codex gets released, these are the data sheets that you can put on an army. Coming this weekend, in your smaller events, and probably the weekend after that in your larger ones, maybe we'll see some variation. Until then, Brad did what you're going to do with your Admech. 3rd place, we have Guard Robert Moreland, Gaunt's Ghosts, Lord Solar, Platoon Command Squad, 10 Infantry, 2 Chimeras, 2 Basilisks, 2 3s of Bullgryns, a Hellhound, a Land Raider Demolisher, 2 Solo Scout Sense, a Storm Sword, which, judging by the name, is the Demolisher Cannon big super heavy tank, 5 Scions, and a Calidus Assassin. This is more of my I'm curious as to what the terrain was like kind of lists, because those giant tanks, on GW terrain, I think they would A, struggle to move around the board, and B, struggle to get firing lines. So I'm curious. And then finally, last list we're going to talk about, and I'm eating up 44 minutes of your time here, so you're getting your money's worth, which, by the way, like, subscribe, join the Patreon. It's a good time. Brian Ellis brought an actual Emperor's Children list. That doesn't really mean much because, it means that you brought Lucius, and it means that you can bring more Noise Marines. And Brian did those two things. GW, please give us an Emperor's Children Codex, and please let us use that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Primarch model in 40K. Thank you very much. Lucius, 2 Dark Apostles, 1 Dark Commune. The Dark Commune has its 16 Accursed Cultist friends, 1 Master of Execution, 10 Cultists, 10 Legionnaires, 5 5s of Noise Marines, maxing out on their big blaster guns, 2 5s of Chosen, 5 Possessed, 5 Raptors, 5 Warp Talons, a Hellbrute, and a Rhino. Brian's list makes my Slanesh-loving heart happy, and so congrats to Brian. But again, this is a much more shooty cast Space Marine list of a theme of what we saw here at the Iron Cage GT. We got Guard, Eldari, Necrons, CSM, and Votann rounding out the final placings there in the Iron Cage. So that's what we got for you this week. Next week, it has been rumored that we will see the return of the Colin. Next week, also, the 49ers are going to play the Seahawks, so Colin might just decide to pass up on speaking in front of a studio audience after that takes place on a Sunday. Hug your loved ones. Tell them that you love them, whomever they may be, and even if it's just yourself. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next weekend. But until then, this has been the show about the Grim Dark. That is neither grim nor dark. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.